The windmill creaked against the gray dawn. Dry blades turned slow, scraping like old bones in the wind. He rode past without caring. 3 years alone does that. Then he saw them, two small faces wrapped in dust and fear. And behind them, a woman barely standing. "Take the children," she whispered. "Just take them." But the smallest girl stepped forward, clutching a locket bearing his dead wife's name. He froze in the saddle. How did they have that? The windmill creaked against the gray morning. A slow, rhythmic groan. Like an old man rising from a grave. He sat on the porch steps, whittling a piece of dry cedar. The shavings curled onto his boots. 3 years of this. 3 years of silence thick enough to choke a prayer. He had buried his wife behind the barn. He had moved the rocking chair to the attic. He had shut the world out like a boarded-up church. Nothing left worth saving. Nothing left worth losing. The coffee in his tin cup was cold. Just like the wind. Just like him. The windmill creaked again, louder this time, as if calling him back to the living. That was when he saw them. A shadow detaching from the dust on the road. A woman hunched over. 2 children clinging to her skirts like dying seedlings in a storm. They moved like ghosts dragging their feet through the earth. He didn't stand up. He just watched. They stopped at the gate, looking at the house as if it were a cathedral. The woman's face was pale under layers of soot. She trembled. "Water," she rasped. Her voice shook like brittle glass. He stayed seated, knife still in his hand. Pumps round back. She didn't move. She stared at him, eyes wide with a desperation he remembered too well. "Please, not for me. Take the children. Just take them." He stood up slowly. His joints popped. "I ain't running an orphanage. We have nowhere else to go," she whispered. "The man coming for us. He doesn't know mercy." He walked down the steps, boots sinking into the cold ground. He intended to turn them away. He intended to close the gate. Then the little girl stepped forward. She couldn't have been more than 6. She reached into her pocket, her small hands shaking. She pulled out a silver chain. It swung in the cold air, catching the weak light. A locket. He stopped. Frozen. He knew that shine. He knew the dent on the left side. His breath caught in his throat. The windmill creaked above them, a dull, hollow sound that scraped through his bones. The girl opened the locket. Inside was a small painted portrait. His wife. Smiling. Wearing her Sunday blue. The image hit him harder than a bullet. "She told me," the girl said. Her voice was clear, certain. She said the man in the big house would keep but safe. Impossible. His wife had been in the ground for 3 winters. The widow lowered her head, waiting for judgment. He looked at the horizon. Dark clouds were gathering. The ice in his chest cracked. Just a fracture. But enough to hurt. Inside, he muttered. Just for the night. He stepped aside. They entered the home. The house had forgotten company. Dust lay thick on the windowsills, muting the morning light. He pushed the door wider with his shoulder and stepped in first, out of habit. Cold air met him. The fire in the stone hearth had long since gone to gray ash. "Stay close," he said without looking back. He crossed the room, struck a match against a cracked box on the mantel, and held the flame to the kindling. Dry twigs caught with a soft hiss. The windmill creaked outside, its low moan slipping in through the chinks of the walls, as though the land itself was listening. Behind him, the boy sniffed. "Is this your place?" He grunted. Was. The widow stood just inside the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, shawl drawn tight. She didn't step further. "You can put your things by the wall," he said. "One night. That's all." The girl clutched the locket and a small bundle of clothes to her chest. She stared at the fire like she didn't trust it. He tossed a couple of split logs on the small blaze. Sparks lifted, faded. Slowly, warmth began to push back the chill. The silence did not move so easily. He pulled a tin pot from a hook, sloshed in water from a pail, set it near the flame. "You hungry?" 3 heads nodded at once. He opened a cupboard. Half a loaf. A small sack of beans. Salt. Not much else. He hesitated. 3 extra mouths. 3 strangers. He felt the old numbers turning in his mind. Feed them once. Send them on their way. He poured beans into a pot, added water, a pinch of salt. The smell rose slow and simple, not enough to be a feast, enough to remind them they were alive. The boy took a step toward the kitchen table, hand trailing along the back of a chair. "Don't sit there," the rancher snapped before he could stop himself. The boy froze. He swallowed, jaw tight, then pointed to another chair. "That one's fine." The widow looked at the first chair. It held no dust. The cushion still plump. A woman's shawl lay folded neat on its back. The wind outside shifted. The windmill creaked again. A long, aching sound. "Your wife's?" the widow asked softly. He didn't answer. He just pulled out a different chair and nodded at the boy. They sat. The beans simmered. The children's stomachs growled louder than they did. He set 3 chipped bowls on the table, then a 4th after a beat, as if the decision cost him something. The boy said, "Thank you, sir," eyes on the steam. The girl didn't speak. She held the spoon like it might vanish. The widow watched him, weary. "You're kind to us." "I ain't kind," he said. "Just not so mean I'd leave you in a ditch." She flinched at the word ditch. He noticed, filed it away, said nothing. They ate in fits and starts. Soft clinks of spoons on metal. A cough here. A sniff there. Little noises that pried open the quiet he'd built around himself. He almost missed the days when the only sound inside these walls was the wind in his own boots. Almost. When the bowls were scraped clean, the boy wiped his mouth with the back of his sleeve. "Ma, it's warm," he whispered, like warmth itself was a rare animal. The rancher stacked the bowls in the basin. "You can sleep in the back room," he said. "There's a bed. Just one. The boy can take the floor." The widow shook her head. "We're grateful for the floor, all of us. You've done enough." He caught the shadow in her words. Done enough. As if there was a line he mustn't cross. As if kindness was dangerous too. The wind nudged the house again. A faint rattle ran along the window glass. He glanced toward the front door, instincts pricking. "You said a man was coming for you," he said. "Is he likely to ride in the dark?" Her face strained. "He's likely to ride whenever it suits him," she said. "And he's got men who don't care what they step on." The little girl's hand tightened around the locket. He saw her knuckles go white. He walked to the door, checked the latch, then the rifle leaning in the corner. Cold metal against his palm. He set it back down. Not yet. In the small back room, he yanked a gray blanket from the trunk at the foot of the unused bed. "Sheets are clean enough," he muttered. "No one slept here in a while." The widow stepped past him, hesitating as she brushed his shoulder. Her dress smelled of road dust and something faintly floral beneath it, like a memory trying to surface. The boy followed, wide-eyed at the sight of a real bed. The girl moved slower, bare feet whispering on the floorboards. She paused by the window. Outside, the windmill groaned its slow circle, framed in the fading light. She turned back to him. "This was her room," she said. His throat went dry. "Who told you that?" She lifted the locket slightly. No. A shiver crawled up his spine that had nothing to do with the cold. He stepped back, leaving them space. "You'll sleep here tonight," he said. "Tomorrow, you move on." The widow nodded once. "If we see tomorrow." He didn't like the way she said it. He didn't like that part of him wanted to ask who, exactly, she was afraid of. Instead, he turned away. Night settled heavy over the ranch. Morning slid into the house on a thin line of light. He woke to the sound of whispering. Not wind. Not the creak of the windmill. Children. He sat up on his narrow bed, boots still on from the night before, and listened. A soft giggle. A hushed, urgent "Shh, Ma'll hear." Then the faint clatter of pans in the kitchen. Noise where there used to be nothing. He stepped into the main room, rubbing a hand over his face. The fire had been coaxed back to life. Flames licked around fresh wood, heat pushing at the morning cold. The widow stood by the hearth, sleeves rolled to the elbow, stirring something in the pot. The boy sat at the table, shelling peas from a jar that had been on the shelf since last summer. The girl knelt on the floor with a rag, wiping a muddy footprint he hadn't even noticed. No one belonged there, but they fit, somehow. He cleared his throat. 3 heads snapped toward him. "Morning," the widow said, voice careful. He nodded. "Didn't say you could light my fire." Her eyes flinched first, then hardened. "It was cold," she answered. "For them." He grunted. Couldn't argue with cold. He stepped closer to the hearth, letting the warmth creep into his bones despite himself. The windmill groaned outside, slower now, its old complaint muffled by the crackle inside. "Breakfast'll be ready soon," she said. "If you want it." He did. And he hated that he did. After they ate, he pushed his chair back and stood. "Boy," he said, "you any good with your hands?" The boy straightened up, chest puffing a little. "Yes, sir. I can help. We worked a bit of land before." He trailed off. "Before what hung in the air?" "Come on then," the rancher said. "Barn's waiting." The boy looked to his mother. She gave a small nod, though her fingers dug into the edge of the table. Outside, the air bit harder. Frost still clung to the shadowed side of the water trough. The rancher handed the boy a pitchfork almost as tall as he was. "Ever mucked out a straw?" "Some. We'll make it more than some." They worked in fits and starts. The boy's arms shook under the weight. He slipped once, boots sliding in the straw and muck. The rancher's hand shot out, catching his shoulder before he fell. "You watch your footing," he said, more gruff than angry. "Barn floor is colder than it looks." "Why, yes, sir." The steady rhythm of shovel and fork beat back the quiet. Horses snorted. A chicken complained from somewhere it shouldn't be. Life, making itself heard. Halfway through the second stall, the boy went still, fork hanging. "Ma says he might find us," he blurted. The rancher paused. "Who?" "The man with the papers," the boy said. "He wears rings and don't like getting dirty. Talks soft but makes Ma cry." The rancher felt the cold seat back and around the edges. He jabbed the fork into the straw harder than needed. "This man got a name?" The boy opened his mouth, then shut it. Color drained from his face. "I ain't supposed to say." The windmill creaked, a long, slow turn in the distance. A reminder. The world didn't forget what it wanted to claim. "Fine," the rancher said. "You remember this instead. While you're here, you do as I say. You hear trouble, you get low and quiet. You see riders you don't know, you get inside. Quick." The boy nodded, eyes wide. "Yes, sir." He went back to work. So did the rancher. But the warmth of the labor had a shadow in it now. By midday, the house smelled different. Beans again, yes, but also bread. Rough dough flattened and set near the fire on an old iron pan. The girl hummed as she watched it rise. "Hello," familiar melody. He stepped into the doorway and froze. The tune curled through the room, light and sure, like it had every right to be there. It was the same song his wife used to hum in that rocking chair by the window. On long winter evenings. On stormy nights when thunder scared the chickens and the sky split open. "Where'd you learn that?" he asked, the word sharper than he meant. The girl stopped mid-note, eyes wide. I don't know," she said. "It just feels like it belongs here." The widow looked from him to her daughter, worry tight around her mouth. "I tell her to hush it," she said quietly. "Some songs don't bring anything good." He swallowed. The room felt suddenly smaller, walls pressing in with old memories. He turned away, went to the window. Outside, the sky was a hard, pale blue. The grave behind the barn was a small rise of earth, the wooden cross leaning a little more each season. He watched it for a long time. He did not go out to straighten it. In the afternoon, he found chores for all of them. The boy stacked wood by the door in uneven piles. The girl shook out old curtains, dust spiraling in the light like ghosts being chased. The widow scrubbed the table, wiped the shelves, folded his wife's straw with careful hands and set it aside instead of on the chair. He noticed that. "Leave it where it was," he said. She glanced at the empty chair. "At least let me beat the dust from it," she replied. "The past don't need to rot on the present." He opened his mouth to argue, then shut it. The house did feel less stale with the windows cracked, with footsteps moving in and out. Noise against silence. Warmth shouldering out cold. "Do what you need," he muttered. Outside, a hawk screamed overhead, sharp and distant. The next morning came in soft, like it was sneaking up on them. No hard sun yet. Just pale light feeling its way through thin curtains. He woke to the sound of water. Not rain. Pale water. Somewhat at his palm. He shrugged on his shirt, stepped onto the porch. Cold bit his forearms. Breath fogged white. The widow worked the pump with steady pulls. The boy held the bucket firm. The girl sat on the top step wrapped in his wife's old shawl, humming that same tune. Each note light as dust in a sunbeam. Each note sharper than memory. He cleared his throat. The girl stopped mid-note. "Morning," the widow said. "Pump's temperamental," he muttered. "Needs coaxing." She jerked the handle. Water gushed cold and clear. "I've handled worse things than a stubborn pump." Behind them, the windmill groaned slow, dragging cold through the morning like a dull knife. They carried the water inside. The house smelled of overboiled coffee and reheated bread. Small sounds pushed back the silence. The boy's uneven footsteps. Tin cups clinking. The girl's hum she kept swallowing down. He poured coffee, leaned on the counter. The girl slipped the locket under her dress like she hoped he wouldn't notice. But he noticed everything. "How long you had that trinket?" She froze. The widow's hand stilled on the loaf. "A while," the girl whispered. "That ain't an answer," he said. "Things like that don't just fall out of the sky." The widow set the bread down hard. "Let her be. She's just a child." He met her eyes. Saw fear. And guilt. "I buried the woman in that picture," he said. "No one besides me and the undertaker stood over her grave, so forgive me if I don't take kindly to her showing up around another child's neck." Silence dropped heavy. Even the fire hushed. Outside, the windmill complained on. The girl finally spoke. "It was Mama's before it was mine. Not Ma. My first Mama." That word, first, hung there like smoke. He turned to the widow. "You said they were yours." "I said I was their mother," she answered. "In every way that matters." He set the cup down, metal ringing sharp. "Seems there's plenty that matters you ain't saying." She swallowed her words. "We've lost enough. Dragging ghosts to the table won't change that." He wanted to demand answers. Instead he stood. "Boy, chores aren't doing themselves." The boy rose fast. "Yes, sir. They fix leaning fence posts all morning. Sharp air, hard ground. Hammer blows ringing across the field." The boy's hands reddened. "Hurts," he muttered. "Hurt means you're using them," the rancher said. "You stop feeling anything, that's when you worry." His own words scraped at him. 3 years without feeling much at all. From where they worked, he saw the hill, the grave, the cross, and the girl climbing toward it, shawl tight, something clutched in her fist. He stiffened. You tell her she could go up there? The boy shook his head. No, sir. Cold slid under his skin. By the time he reached the grave, breath came too fast. The girl stood by the mound, speaking low. He caught fragments. Thank you. Found us. Don't be mad. She turned when his boots crunched frost. No fear. Just knowing. You don't come here without asking, he said. This ain't play. I'm not playing. I'm visiting. His jaw tightened. Visiting who? She held a wilting wildflower. Same lady as in the locket. His throat locked. How do you know that? She told me. Cold cut the warm morning in two. Dead don't talk, he said. Maybe not with words, she whispered. But I feel her wanna hum. Right here. She pressed her hand to her chest. Feels like storms used to feel, when Ma held me. The windmill grown far off, its lonely sound weaving with her quiet certainty. That night the house felt too warm. Fire strong. Windows tight. Stew thin but comforting. The boy asked questions too fast. The rancher answered slow. The girl hummed again. The widow squeezed her wrist. Not here. Why not? He asked. House remembers it. The widow looked at the empty chair. The shawl folded neat. Because music calls things, she said. And some things we don't want to find at us. Later, he found her at the window. Night pressed cold against the glass. She watched the road. You expecting company? Always. He stood beside her, not touching. That man, after you or the children? Men like him don't separate things. If he gets the children, he owns me anyway. You could have gone to a judge. She laughed once. Judge eats at his table. Preacher too. The windmill creaked like a heartbeat. You brought that trouble to my door. Yes, and I brought you that locket. That song. That girl who feels your dead wife in her bones. Maybe trouble ain't the only thing that found you. His pulse stumbled. The room felt too alive. Something old shifted inside him. Not frozen. Not thawed. Just waking. Outside, the windmill turned in the dark. Not alone. Now it carried the faint echo of an unfinished lullaby. The kind that calls things back. Dusk settled like a slow bruise over the plains. He stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching the sky trade blue for rust. The windmill groaned behind him, turning just enough to complain. A coyote yipped far off. The cattle were quiet. Too quiet. Inside, the house buzzed with small life. The boy sweeping straw from his boots. The girl whispering the start of that lullaby before catching herself. The widow kneading dough with stiff shoulders, as if each fold held a prayer. Warmth pressing against the cold. Noise nudging out silence. He should have felt comfort. He felt watched. He scanned the road again. Nothing but dust and distance. Then the horses came. Not close. Not loud. Just silhouettes cresting the far ridge, slow riders, keeping formation, too even to be wanderers. 5 of them. Dark against fading light. He didn't move. Just watched. Jaw working. The windmill turned, metal scraping like a warning. The door creaked behind him. The widow stepped out, hands dripping water from the wash basin. She followed his stare to the ridge. Color drained from her face. Not yet, she whispered. They shouldn't be this close yet. He didn't take his eyes off the riders. You know who they are. Scouts, she said. He sends them first. They watch. They report. Her hands shook. Wet drops fell to the porch boards like rain. He doesn't knock first. The riders paused at the ridge, staring down at the ranch. Not approaching. Not retreating. Just marking the place with their eyes. One lifted binoculars. He felt the glass settle on him like a hand on the chest. The boy stepped out then, broom still in hand. "Who's that?" He pushed the boy back inside with a gentle but firm arm. "Finish your work." The boy opened his mouth to protest, then saw the widow's face and closed it. He slipped inside. Door clicked shut. The widow wrapped her arms around herself. "If he finds us, you don't know what he'll do." He finally turned to her. "No," he said quietly. "I don't." She opened her mouth, then shut it, like speaking it would make it real. The riders turned their horses and vanished over the slope as silently as they came. No dust trail. No signal. Just gone. He stayed on the porch long after. The wind picked up, colder now. The sky gone purple and iron. He watched shadows pool in the low places of the land. Shadows that could hide men. Shadows that could hide intent. Nothing moved. Still, he didn't trust it. Inside, dinner simmered. Beans again, stretched thin. The smell of onion and pepper barely covering the scent of fear. The girl sat at the table, swinging her feet, 2 small feet for a world too sharp. She hummed again. Soft. Barely there. The widow snapped her fingers. "Stop that." The girl froze. "Why?" "It helps me not be scared." The widow's voice cracked like old wood. "That song belongs to ghosts." He set his fork down. "It belonged to my wife." Silence dropped again. Thick. Shameful. The girl slid her hand across the table until it touched his wrist. "She doesn't want you alone," she whispered. His chest tightened hard enough to hurt. He pulled his hand back, slow, not unkind, but distant. After supper, he stepped outside again. Lantern in hand. Rifle leaning against his leg. The night smelled like dust and secrets. A hawk screamed somewhere in the dark. Coyotes answered. The windmill turned once, twice, then stopped. No wind, yet it trembled anyway, like something unseen passed its blades. He circled the barn, boots crunching on dry grass. Fence posts stood straight where they'd worked them that morning. Cattle lay quiet, heads down. Everything looked normal, but the air felt wrong. He found hoof prints near the far fence. Fresh. Deep. Dirt kicked backward, not forward. Meaning riders had pulled up. Watched. Turned away. He crouched, hands hovering over the prints like a man reading scripture. Not cowboys. Not neighbors. Men who knew how to move silent. Men with purpose. The windmill gave a final, soft creak. He stood, eyes on the horizon. "You've been found," he said under his breath. "Maybe we all have." When he walked back to the house, the windows glowed warm as lanterns on a ship at sea. Inside, voices murmured. Soft. Alive. He felt the pull of that warmth, and the pull of the cold outside. 2 worlds tugging at the same scar. As he reached the porch, the girl's voice drifted through the window. She hummed the lullaby again. Not scared this time. Steady. Clear. A song that didn't ask permission. A song that didn't care who heard. He closed his eyes, jaw tight. That tune carried farther on the night air than whispers. Farther than prayers. Farther than fear. It could carry all the way to the men on the ridge, and call them back. He stepped inside, shutting the door against the dark. Warmth swallowed him whole. But the cold had already marked the walls. Morning broke sharp and bright, the kind that made shadows look thinner than they ought to be. He saddled his horse for a supply run to town, mostly out of routine, partly to clear his head. The widow watched from the doorway, arms crossed, shawl tight, eyes on the horizon more than on him. "You'll be back before sundown?" "That's the plan." She nodded but didn't look convinced. Fear lived in her posture now, not from last night, but from what might follow. He rode out, dust kicking up behind him. The windmill creaked once, like it was worried. The town sat small and quiet in the morning sun, just a feed store, a blacksmith, A saloon still sweeping drunks out the back door. A slow place. A harmless place. Or it used to be. He tied his horse near the mercantile. The owner nodded, polite, hesitant. "New folks on your land," the man said, pretending to sort nails. "Word travels. Word travels faster when folks whisper it," he replied. The shopkeeper didn't deny it. He bought flour, salt, lamp oil, coffee. Paid more than last visit. People pressed fear. Or pity. Hard to tell which. When he stepped outside, a man in a tailored coat waited beside a black carriage rimmed in polished silver. Flat hat. Polished boots untouched by dust. Soft hands. Soft voice. The kind of softness that hides iron. "Good morning," the man said, smiling with only half his face. The rancher shifted the supplies in his arms. "Do I know you?" "No, but we have business." His gaze drifted to the rancher's saddlebags. "To do with the children." Cold crawled beneath the sun. He set the flour down slow. "Who sent you?" "A concerned guardian." The stranger reached into his coat and produced papers sealed with wax. "One who wishes to reclaim what is his." The rancher didn't touch the documents. "Those young ones were abandoned," the man continued, voice smooth as church oil. "By law, they revert to the newest recognized authority." "And who's that?" "The gentleman I represent." He slid the papers closer. "Sign here, and you won't be held responsible for harboring fugitives." The rancher's jaw went tight. "Not signing a damn thing." The man lifted his chin, still smiling. "That woman has spawned you a tragic tale, no doubt. But she is not the children's mother. She holds them illegally. Worse, she is dangerous." Dangerous. The word rolled wrong in his ears. He'd seemed dangerous. She wasn't it. He took a step forward. "You tell your employer to come himself." "He will," the man said. "And when he does, you'd be wise to cooperate." The smile vanished. Voice dropped. "We own the judge. We own the sheriff. We own the pastor." He tapped the sealed papers once, deliberate. "We could own you." The rancher leaned in until their foreheads almost touched. "You try." The man didn't flinch, but his eyes flickered. "You've been warned," he said, getting back into the carriage. "Those children are property." The rancher's fists curled. "They're people." The carriage rolled off with quiet wheels and loud intent. He rode home faster than he left. Horses on the ridge again. Watching. Counting. The windmill's moan met him before the house did. Something in the sound felt less lonely and more alert. As if it, too, understood trouble. The widow stood by the porch, eyes scanning the road, shawl flapping like a flag in the wind. When she saw him riding hard, her face went pale. "You saw someone." He dismounted without tying the reins. Man in a black carriage, soft hands, carried papers. Her knees softened. "He's already here. He claims you're keeping the children illegally." "I never claimed otherwise." Anger rushed through him. "Then why bring them to me?" "Because every place else fell." She looked toward the horizon, voice cracking. "They burn homes that refuse. They take children like livestock. They bury the truth so deep no preacher dares speak it." The girl peeped from behind the doorframe, locket shining faintly in the light. "He wants them alive," the widow whispered. "But he doesn't care if I stay that way." The windmill turned once. Metal grinding. A warning. "What's he want with them?" the rancher asked. Her eyes glistened, not with tears, with terror. "They're not his by blood. They're his by law. A paper he forged. A claim he stole." She took a breath, voice shaking. "But he's looking for something else, too. Something he thinks the girl knows." The rancher looked at the child. At the locket. At the hill beyond the barn. At the grave. What could she possibly know? The widow turned away. Asked her. "I'm afraid to." The windmill groaned again, louder now, echoing through the cold air like a tired sentinel. He placed a hand on the rifle leaning by the porch. Warmth inside, cold outside, noise fighting silence. Trouble wasn't coming. It was already here. The siege didn't start with gunfire. It started with quiet. 2 days after the man in the black coat, the usual supply wagon from town rolled past his lane without slowing. The rancher stood on the porch, arms crossed. He watched the wagon rattle by in a cloud of dust. No wave, no glance, just wheels turning. The windmill creaked overhead, metal complaining into the still morning. The boy stepped out beside him, broom in hand. "Ain't they stopping?" "Not today," the rancher said, voice flat. The widow watched from the doorway, one hand tied on the frame. She didn't ask why. She already knew. Inside, the house hummed with small, stubborn life. The girl humming under her breath as she folded rags. The pop of the fire, the clatter of tin plates, warmth pressing against the thin walls. Outside, the road lay empty. No riders, no dust. He didn't trust it. He checked the pantry. Flour low, beans low, coffee almost gone. "Stretch everything," he told the widow. "We've been stretching for years," she answered. "But I'll stretch it again." By afternoon, the first real message came. Not spoken, nailed. A scrap of paper pinned to his fence post with a clean, bright nail. He found it while walking the line. Cold wind biting his cheeks, boots crunching on dry earth. The paper bore a seal he recognized from town. Courthouse. Words written neat. Notice of custodial claim. Return minors forthwith. Harboring will be punished by law. His jaw clenched until his teeth ached. The windmill groaned behind him, carrying the sound back toward the house like a warning. He tore the paper down, folded it once, twice, shoved it deep in his coat pocket like he could bury it there. That evening, the boy came in from the yard with a cut on his lip. "They were at the creek," he muttered. "Who?" "Men. With horses. Said this wasn't my place. Said I was trespassing on land that belonged to their boss now." The rancher felt the cold come in with the boy. "How many?" "3. "Guns?" The boy nodded. "They laughed when I ran." The girl stood in the corner, fists balled in the shawl. "I told him not to go far," the widow said. "But he wanted water that didn't taste of dust." The rancher stepped close to the boy, lifted his chin, studied the cut. "Next time you see them, you don't talk," he said. "You don't argue. You come home." "I'm not scared," the boy answered, voice small. "Good," the rancher said. "Be smart instead." Night fell sharper. They ate thin stew in near silence. The girl hummed once, just a single drifting note of the old lullaby. The widow's hand shot out, pressing her fingers over the child's mouth. "Not now," she whispered. Even the fire seemed to shrink. Flames lowering, crackle softening. Outside, no coyotes called, no owls suited. Just the windmill's slow creak, circling over a land holding its breath. The next day brought more signs. He rode out to a neighbor's place, hoping for news, maybe help. The neighbor stepped onto his porch but didn't come down to the yard. Didn't offer coffee. Didn't offer a handshake. "Got word from town," the man said. "Folks that cross that barren don't stay lucky." "I'm not asking for luck," the rancher replied. "I'm asking if you'll stand up for what's right." The neighbor's eyes slid away. "I got a wife, 3 little ones, a mortgage." He swallowed. "Can't feed them on what's right." Silence spread between them, cold and wide. The wind, even here, carried the faint echo of a creaking windmill from far off. Same sound, different yard, same warning. The neighbor stepped back. "Best not come calling for a while," he said, voice tight. "His men notice who you talk to." On the ride back, the road felt longer than it ever had. By week's end, the siege had a shape. The general store wouldn't extend credit. The blacksmith turned his eyes away. Mail that should have arrived never did. No bullets. No warrants at the door. Just the slow tightening of a noose made of paper and fear. The rancher moved through his days with a rifle closer to hand and a shorter fuse on his temper. But the house tried to stay alive. The girl sang when she thought no one listened. Soft, breathy bits of the lullaby drifting from the back room as she made the bed. From the yard as she helped hang laundry. From the porch steps as she watched the road, shawl wrapped tight. The sound made the walls feel warmer. It made his chest feel colder. At supper one night, with the wind keening at the windows and the windmill grinding like worn bones, he finally asked what nagged him. "Tell me about those papers," he said to the widow. Her spoon paused halfway to her lips. He waited. The boy stared at his bowl. The girl traced circles on the table with one small finger. "They made me sigh," the widow said at last. "After the fire." He frowned. "What fire?" "The one that took their first family," she answered. "Their real blood. House burned in the night. Only the children and I came out. He arrived before the smoke cleared, brought his own preacher, his own lawyer, put the papers in front of me." Her eyes went distant. "Sign, and they live under my roof," he said. "Don't sign, and maybe the law decides you're unfit." She drew a shaky breath. "I signed. I thought I could keep them safe. Thought I could slip away later." She looked at the girl then, at the locket. Didn't know there were other strings. Didn't know what he was really looking for. The girl's humming died on her lips. Later, when the children slept, he stepped out to the yard. Cold slapped his face. From the fence nearest the road, another paper fluttered. Nailed clean. This one carried fewer words. The night didn't break. It split. Thunder without storm. Hooves without warning. Lanterns cutting through the dark like hungry eyes. He was already awake, sitting beside the low fire, rifle across his knees. He felt them before he heard them. Pressure in the ground, heavy, confident. The windmill creaked once, sharp and fast, like a snapped bone. The widow flew into the main room, hair loose, breath short. "They're here." The boy clutched boots he hadn't laced. The girl held the locket like a shield. He stood slow, a man shutting 3 years of stillness. "Back room," he told them. "No lights." The widow hesitated. "We can run." "It's too late to run." She swallowed and pulled the children away, door shutting soft behind them. Outside, torches burned in a half circle around the house. Men dismounted, rifles slung casual, like hunters approaching pen game. A black carriage waited behind them. Polished. Silent. The boss didn't step out. Not yet. But his voice carried. "Bring out the children." Soft voice. Soft words. Sharp intent. The rancher walked onto the porch. Rifle down at his side, not raised. "Not yet." "You're trespassing," he called. A man with a bowler hat laughed. "We're retrieving property." "They ain't property." Bowler hat smirked. "Law disagrees." Another man set a torch at the base of the fence rail. The flame licked dry wood. He aimed a rifle. "Move the torch, or I drop you where you stand." Torch man paused. Grinned. Stepped back. Bowler hat raised an open palm. "No need for violence. Sign the papers. Hand over the children. Everyone walks away. You don't walk away clean from stealing kids." Bowler hat sighed like a disappointed father. "You don't even know what they are." "They're children." "No." Cold smile. "They're keys." The wind shifted. The girl's lullaby, soft, distant, floated through the cracks of the walls. Unbidden, fragile, brave. Several men turned toward the sound. One crossed himself. The boss finally stepped from the carriage. tall, smooth coat, chin held like royalty. "That song," he said. "It survives." The rancher's finger twitched on the trigger. The boss raised a silver-tipped cane. "Kill the mother. Bring me the children alive. No more talk." The rancher fired first. Bowler's hat dropped with a hole through his chest, torch rolling from his hand. The night exploded. Gunfire cracked like lightning. Horses screamed. Glass shattered behind him. He moved through the fight like a man who had once sworn he'd never kill again, and now remembered exactly how. He shot the first 2 men clean. The third grazed his shoulder. Blood warmed his shirt. Pain sharpened his aim. He ducked behind the grain cart, reloaded in the dark. Fire from torches crawled across the yard. The windmill spun sudden and fast, shrieking like metal in agony. Inside, the widow grabbed a poker from the hearth. The boy held a knife too big for his hand. The girl pressed against the door, humming louder now, as if the world depended on it. The widow looked at the locket. "Don't stop singing, baby. Not tonight." Outside, a gunman rushed the porch. The rancher grabbed him by the coat, slammed him into the post, and buried a knife under his ribs. Warm blood hit the dirt. Cold wind cut across it. The boss stood back, untouched, watching with the detached calm of a man counting livestock. He lifted a small pistol, silver and polished. "You can't keep them," he said. "Their bloodline didn't die in that fire. It only hid." "And you think you deserve it?" the rancher shouted. "I own what I can claim." He raised his rifle. The boss fired. Pain tore across the rancher's ribs, burning like iron. He staggered but didn't fall. He aimed again, but a boot struck him from the side, another man tackling him into the dirt. Fists, mud, blood. He rolled, grabbed a stone, smashed the attacker's jaw. Teeth flew. The widow burst from the house, poker swinging. She cracked a torchbearer across the skull, sending flame marching across the yard. Someone grabbed her from behind, a hand over her mouth. She bit down hard enough to draw blood. He screamed, "Let go." The boss stepped toward the house, toward the girl's voice, toward the song. "No," the rancher roared, lunging. He fired point blank. The bullet slammed into the boss's shoulder, spinning him back. The cane dropped. The song grew louder, trembling but unbroken. The remaining men hesitated. Some stepped back. Others stared at the girl through the window like she was something holy or cursed. The rancher lifted his rifle again. "You ain't taking them." The boss, bleeding, laughed through his teeth. "This is only the start." He signaled, and the men retreated, not defeated, just withdrawing, like wolves circling for another night. The torches guttered out behind them. Hooves faded into the dark. Silence returned. Shaking, breathless. The windmill slowed, groaning like a spent sentinel. He stood in the yard, rifle trembling in his hands. Blood on his coat. Smoke in his lungs. Warmth behind him. Cold in front. The house alive. The land hungry. The girl's voice drifted through the broken window, soft and tired. That same lullaby. Not calling for danger now. Calling them home. He turned toward the sound and stepped inside. The fire burned low. Not warm enough to comfort. Just bright enough to reveal wounds. He sat at the table, shirt torn, dried blood crusted along his ribs. The widow paced the room like a caged animal. The children slept in the back room, curled together beneath quilts. Outside, the windmill turned slow, creaking like a tired witness. No riders on the road. Not tonight. But dawn would bring questions, and likely more men. The widow stopped pacing. "You should have let him take us." He looked up sharply. "I don't hand children to wolves." "That wasn't your fight," she whispered. "It is now." She sank into a chair across from him, eyes hollow. "You want the truth?" He didn't answer. Silence worked better. She took a shaky breath. They weren't born to me. I found them. He frowned. Found? The fire wasn't accidental, she said. It was meant to kill every blood heir of a certain family. A family the Baron had been trying to swallow for years. Laughed, rights, name, all of it. She looked toward the back room. I was a housemaid there. I woke to smoke. I got the children out. Their real mother didn't make it. Their father had died the winter before. She closed her eyes. I thought I'd done right. Thought saving them was enough. He leaned forward. And the locket? It belonged to their mother. She said if anything happened, they were to go to a man she trusted, a rancher west of the plains, a man with a wife who knew the lullaby. His pulse stumbled. She knew my wife? The widow nodded. They were sisters. The room seemed to tilt. His breath left him slow. You never said. I wasn't sure, she said. Not until the girl hummed that song. Not until I saw the hill behind your barn. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand. She, their mother, said your wife carried a secret her family had died protecting. A map, a document, something that proved their claim to the land the Baron now owns. He stared at the fire, remembering his wife's last days. How she'd asked to be buried behind the barn. How she'd said, "Don't let the land forget me." How she'd clutched something small in her hand before she passed, something he'd never found afterward. He rubbed his jaw. So the Baron doesn't want the children. He wants what they lead to, she whispered. And that song, it was the key. The windmill groaned outside, blades turning without wind. A sound like a warning, or a memory. He stood, slow. Walked to the window. Looked toward the grave. Frost clung to the cross. Moonlight bled across the mound. Something shifted in him, grief folding into purpose. She died protecting something, he said. And now they're trying to finish what she couldn't. The widow stepped beside him, voice low. If you have any part of that secret, anything she passed to you, now is the time to remember. He shook his head. Nothing. But even as he said it, something tugged at the back of his mind. That night years ago, her last breath, her hands pressed to his chest, as if hiding something between ribs and heart. And the lullaby, sung weak, fading, as if she needed him to hear it one last time. The girl's soft voice drifted from the back room, half asleep humming. Same melody. He closed his eyes. The song curled around him, not painful anymore, just familiar. A thread leading somewhere he'd refused to follow. He whispered, almost to himself. She wasn't singing to me. The widow's brow furrowed. What? She was singing to lead me, he said. To what she hid. He turned to face the room. Jaw set. Eyes no longer tired. I think she buried it. Where? He looked toward the hill. Toward the grave. You know where? The windmill creaked once, long and low, as if agreeing. The widow backed up a step. We dig tonight? No, he said. Not yet. She stared at him, confused. Why wait? Because men are coming, he answered. And I won't dig with my back turned. He picked up the rifle, checked the chamber, sat again by the door, ready for dawn. The widow watched him, voice barely above a breath. So what are the children now? He didn't blink. Not bait, not treasure. He looked toward the back room, toward the small voices sleeping in safety for the first time in months. Their family. Outside, frost crackled in the dark, and the windmill turned slowly, no wind pushing it. A sound no longer lonely. A sound waiting. Sunrise came without hurry. Not loud. Not fierce. Just warm light easing over frost and fence posts, washing the night from the land. The windmill turned slow, not groaning this time, just whispering through its blades like a lullaby half remembered. Inside the house, the embers glowed steady in the hearth, no longer fighting the cold. simply keeping company with the morning. He rose before the others, shoulders stiff where bullets have kissed him, ribs wrapped tight, but his steps were sure. He walked to the hill behind the barn. Dew soaked his boots. Birds stirred in the cottonwoods. He stood by the grave long enough for silence to speak first. The ground had been filled back in, smoothed, blessed by rain and time. "No one's digging you up," he said softly. "But what you left behind, we'll use it right." The wind rustled dried grass at his feet. A soft answer. When he returned to the porch, the children were awake. The boy swept dust from the steps like they'd always been his. The girl fed scraps to chickens who followed her like disciples. She hummed the old tune, but now it sounded lighter. A song of living things, not ghosts. The widow stood in the doorway, arms folded, watching them as if making sure they were real. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm thinking. That dangerous?" He almost smiled. Breakfast was simple. Fresh eggs, pan bread, coffee that no longer tasted like rusted memory. They ate without the tension of waiting for boots in the yard. But not because danger was gone. Because they'd learned how to meet it. After dishes, they rode out to the far west pasture. Not to run, not to hide, to mend. Broken posts from the fight still leaned like wounded soldiers. They worked side by side. His hammer, the boy's rope, the widow steadying boards while the girl collected nails in her small hands. He caught the girl humming again. Not the lullaby exactly. A new tune, brighter, unburdened. The windmill's distant turn matched her rhythm like two voices learning how to sing together. At midday, they stopped beneath a lone cedar. The boy leaned against the trunk, boots off, face to the sky. The girl braided grass into tiny crowns. The widow sat close enough their shoulders brushed. "You're still watching the road," she said. "I always will." "Because you're afraid?" Sunrise came without hurry. Not loud, not fierce, just warm light easing over frost and fence posts, washing the night from the land. The windmill turned slow, not groaning this time, just whispering through its blades like a lullaby half remembered. Inside the house, the embers glowed steady in the hearth, no longer fighting the cold, simply keeping company with the morning. He rose before the others, shoulders stiff where bullets have kissed him, ribs wrapped tight, but his steps were sure. He walked to the hill behind the barn. Dew soaked his boots. Birds stirred in the cottonwoods. He stood by the grave long enough for silence to speak first. The ground had been filled back in, smoothed, blessed by rain and time. "No one's digging you up," he said softly. "But what you left behind, we'll use it right." The wind rustled dried grass at his feet. A soft answer. When he returned to the porch, the children were away. The boy swept dust from the steps like they'd always been his. The girl fed scraps to chickens who followed her like disciples. She hummed the old tune, but now it sounded lighter. A song of living things, not ghosts. The widow stood in the doorway, arms folded, watching them as if making sure they were real. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm thinking. That dangerous?" He almost smiled. Breakfast was simple. Fresh eggs, pan bread, coffee that no longer tasted like rusted memory. They ate without the tension of waiting for boots in the yard. But not because danger was gone. Because they'd learned how to meet it. After dishes, they rode out to the far west pasture. Not to run, not to hide, to mend. Broken posts from the fight still leaned like wounded soldiers. They worked side by side. His hammer, the boy's rope, the widow steadying boards while the girl collected nails in her small hands. He caught the girl humming again. Not the lullaby exactly. A new tune, brighter, unburdened. The windmill's distant turn matched her rhythm like two voices learning how to sing together. At midday, they stopped beneath a lone cedar. The boy leaned against the trunk, boots off, face to the sky. The girl braided grass into tiny crowns. The widow sat close enough their shoulders brushed. "You're still watching the road," she said. "I always will." "Because you're afraid?"